At Thanksgiving, my uncle carved the turkey and said, "You should be thankful we even invited you." My mom just smiled lightly. I stood up, raised my glass, and said, "Thank you for reminding me why I ate before I came." Later that day, a lawyer delivered an envelope. My mom opened it, read the first page, and turned pale. "He wouldn't dare," she whispered. But I arrived at Thanksgiving with a bottle of wine, a neutral sweater, and a half-practiced smile. I'd driven 4 hours through rain and traffic, convincing myself the tension I carried was paranoia. Family is complicated, not cruel, I told myself. They love in their own way. They forget to say things, sure, but maybe this year would be different. It wasn't. My uncle stood at the head of the table, carving the turkey like it was a ritual of dominance. The knife gleamed in the overhead light. People laughed, chattered, passed plates. And then he said it, right in the middle of slicing a perfect breast. "You should be thankful we even invited you." Silence. For a moment. Then a few awkward chuckles. My mother smiled, that small, strained kind of smile that says she heard it but won't challenge it. She raised her glass to him. That was my cue. I stood up slowly, lifted my own glass. "Thank you," I said, loud enough to reach every ear, "for reminding me why I ate before I came." It hurt to say it, but for the first time, I wasn't trying to smooth things over. I was just being honest. The laughter stopped. I set the glass down gently, walked away without a word. No plate, no goodbye. It wasn't about winning. It was about no longer shrinking. For the first time, I chose honesty over harmony, not to create distance, but to stop erasing myself to keep the peace. Later that day, while they were still finishing dessert, a lawyer knocked on the door. He handed my mother an envelope. She opened it at the table. "Read the first page." Her face went pale. "He wouldn't dare," she whispered. But I did, not to make a point, but because I had finally stopped asking myself if I was overreacting. I didn't always know how deep it went. At first, it just felt like bad timing. Like maybe I'd always shown up on the wrong day, worn the wrong shirt, said the wrong thing. I kept rewriting the story to protect them. Maybe they were distracted. Maybe it wasn't about me. But it always was. The Thanksgiving moment wasn't new. It was just the first time I stopped pretending it didn't matter. I sat alone in my apartment the next morning, reading the message my cousin sent. "Your mom said you made a scene, that it ruined the holiday." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was familiar. That's what they always said when I stopped being convenient. When I stopped playing the part they wrote for me. I started pulling the thread. My mind went back to a dozen small humiliations, quiet exclusions dressed as misunderstandings. My brother's birthday dinner when I wasn't told the restaurant changed. "We figured you'd see the group chat," my mother said. I wasn't in that chat. Never had been. Or my dad's retirement party, where my slideshow of photos was replaced last minute with one a bit more professional. I'd worked on it for 3 weeks. No one mentioned it. Even years ago, the time I helped my sister cover tuition, she told her friends her boyfriend did it. Said I just lent her his laptop. The thing is, I always believed they'd come around. That eventually, enough gestures would change the way they saw me. That if I just stayed useful long enough, I'd become visible. But usefulness isn't love. When my uncle said what he said over the turkey, it wasn't cruelty. It was honesty. It was the first time someone said out loud what they all thought. "We don't really want you here. We want what you bring." That night, I didn't sleep. I opened my old email backups, my financial records. I started collecting proof, not to punish, not yet, but to see. I traced the flight I booked for my mother last year to visit her college friend. She posted on Facebook that her husband had surprised her. He hadn't even known. I found the Venmo receipts for every family dinner where they forgot their wallet, the subscriptions I covered for the house, the business software I installed for my dad's firm, now worth hundreds a month in licensing fees. No one ever said thank you. But worse, no one ever asked. They just used the tools, logged into the accounts, called me when something broke. "Fix this." That was the phrase. Not "can you help?" Not "would you mind?" Just "fix it." And maybe I let it happen. Maybe staying useful made me feel needed. But I was starting to realize that need isn't the same as love. And I did. Every time. Until Thanksgiving. The moment I raised my glass and walked out, I crossed a line they didn't think I'd ever approach. Part of me still hoped they'd ask why. That someone would call, not to fix something, but to ask if I was okay. Because in their eyes, I was predictable. The helper. The quiet one. The son who never argued. But something broke that night. Not in me, but in the illusion. I stopped seeing the family I wanted and finally saw the one I had. And the realization hit hard. I was never a person to them. I was a service, a free one. That envelope my lawyer handed them, it wasn't just about money. It was about accountability. It was the first bill I ever sent, for time, for presence, for being the backbone of people who never looked me in the eye and said, "We see you." And here's the part they'll never understand. I didn't do it to hurt them. I did it because I finally believed the pattern. I was tired of hoping. The envelope landed. The silence began. After Thanksgiving, no one called. No apologies, no explanations. Just the kind of quiet that tells you they're busy rewriting the story. So I started rewriting mine. That Monday, I opened my laptop and pulled up the systems they relied on, the ones I built, the security tools in their house. Mine, the Wi-Fi mesh, configured through my admin panel. The shared cloud folder where my dad stored his tax client data, still under my license. The streaming accounts, the shared family phone plan, the subscription I set up for my mom's magazine delivery app, me, all of it. The phrase rang in my head like a mantra. You should be thankful we even invited you. So I reset the balance. First, I went into the family phone plan. 5 lines, 1 account. I transferred all 4 to individual ownership. No warning, no message. They'd get the alert. And in 72 hours, if they didn't accept it, the phones would go dark. Then came the cloud services. My mother's Google Drive, where she stored every family photo. My dad's Dropbox access, tied to his office. My sister's school files, all connected through shared infrastructure I'd paid for, conveniently under my family enterprise umbrella. 1 click. Removed. I opened my password manager next. I'd set it up years ago when my parents kept locking themselves out of things. At first, it was just for their emails. Then their bank. Then everything else. They stopped remembering how to log into their own lives, because I was the one holding the keys. So I updated access to systems I had long maintained. Then I suspended the Amazon household group. No more Prime delivery, no more shared grocery lists, no more access to the Kindle library I built over a decade. All of it gone. Each action was small, almost invisible, but I knew they'd feel every reset. None of this was done out of spite. I was simply returning what had never been shared, responsibility. Stepping back wasn't punishment. It was the beginning of seeing myself outside the role they'd written for me. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it to restore the imbalance they never admitted existed. I wasn't their fixer anymore. I wasn't the IT guy who shows up at holidays, patches the system, and gets paid in passive-aggressive thank yous. I was the system. And now, I was logging off. Letting go of that role felt like breaking up with a version of myself I didn't realize I'd outgrown. By the afternoon, I had moved on to the infrastructure in their house. Every service I provided came from a place of love, until I realized it was being taken for granted. The smart thermostat? Admin rights revoked. The doorbell camera? Deactivated. The automatic light scheduler I programmed so my dad could brag about efficiency to his friends? Offline. I didn't shut anything down maliciously. I just ended my support. Everything they built comfort on was borrowed. Now it was returned. By 6 p.m., the first message arrived. My sister. Why is my email locked? Did you mess with something? I didn't reply. Then my mom. Netflix is down. Can you fix it? I just stared at the screen. Fix it. Always that word. Then came the final straw, a notification from the mortgage company. I'd forgotten I was still a co-signer on the refinance they did 2 years ago. Just to help qualify, my mother had said. That night, I filed a request to remove my name from the mortgage agreement. It would trigger a review. I already knew they wouldn't qualify without my credit. His wasn't retaliation. It was clarity, a long overdue course correction. It hurt to make these choices, but it hurt more to keep pretending nothing was wrong. The next morning, I got a voicemail from my father. We don't know what's going on, but it's childish. You're making things harder than they need to be. It was the first time he'd acknowledged anything. And he still didn't ask, just assumed I'd fix it. I closed the voicemail and opened my files instead. I pulled every invoice, every subscription, every contract I'd signed to support their lives, directly or indirectly. I highlighted each one, labeled them unreciprocated. It was more than I expected. So I started a spreadsheet. Not for revenge. For clarity. I wasn't cutting them off. I was erasing a version of myself they never deserved. The next step would be bigger. Legal, clean, and irreversible. But first, I needed to finish reclaiming my own systems, because I didn't just build their comfort. I'd become invisible in the process. And this was me returning to form. I knew what came next wouldn't be pretty, but it would be necessary. The spreadsheet I'd built that night wasn't just a list of expenses. It was a map of every place they'd taken from me quietly. Month after month, swipe by swipe, subscription by subscription. There were over 30 entries. So I started closing loops. The storage unit my father used for his vintage tools? Lease terminated. I had been paying that for 5 years. No one ever asked why. The business software I managed for my dad's firm? I removed my credentials. Deactivated all access. They hadn't paid for a single license. It was under a package I used to call Family Tier. That tier no longer existed. I didn't leave a note. Then I opened the email server I built for my uncle's dental clinic. The same uncle who joked at Thanksgiving that I should be grateful to be tolerated. His clinic depended on our infrastructure. Firewall protections, patient portals, encrypted backups. All maintained under my business account, for free. I removed them. Not maliciously. Not suddenly. I scheduled their service to end in 7 days. I even left a message in their admin dashboard. This system was maintained at no cost for 11 years. It will be deactivated on the 15th. Please migrate your data. Professional. Respectful. Final. The next morning, my company's client portal lit up with activity. My father's name. My uncle's. They were logging in, clicking, realizing what was happening. I didn't wait for the angry calls. I already knew they were coming. So I called my lawyer. Not to sue. Not yet. I wanted separation. I wanted to dismantle every legal link they had to me, because they were everywhere. My co-signature on the mortgage. My name as an emergency contact for medical decisions. My credentials on the family trust. We began drafting removals. I submitted the form to legally withdraw from the co-signing agreement. Sent a notarized statement to my mother's insurance provider removing myself from liability. Reviewed the legal foundation of the trust I'd funded 2 years ago, the one for future family stability. I froze it. All distributions suspended pending a full review. And then came the symbolic moment. I logged into the old email address my mom used as the fallback for every family account. I'd created it for her in 2009. Every password reset, every verification code, all went through that inbox. I changed the password, logged out, deleted the recovery method. That account died quietly at 11:42 a.m. Tuesday morning. It had served its purpose. That afternoon, my cousin texted me. Your mom says the house Wi-Fi's down. She asked if you unplugged something. I hadn't. It went offline automatically when the license expired. No admin. No support. Just an error message. This service has been discontinued. She'd have to call someone else now. Someone she'd have to pay. And that's when I realized it wasn't about the money. It was about being ungrateful on purpose. For years, I paid the bills they forgot to mention. I built the networks they depended on. I created the structure that made their lives smoother. And they used every bit of it while pretending it was nothing. So I returned nothing. Not out of pettiness, but because I finally believed they never saw me as a person. They saw me as support. And I don't do support anymore. I left one final note. Not to them, to myself. A pinned message in my journal app. They didn't miss me as a person. They missed the ease I created by never pushing back and the systems you built to hold their mess together. You were never invisible. You were the frame. They just never looked at the walls. I enabled that silence because I thought harmony meant hiding pain. They didn't apologize. That would have required self-awareness. What came instead was noise, frantic, desperate, and ugly. It started 3 days after the systems went dark. My sister texted first. You're not making any sense right now. We're family. Fix it. Fix it. Still. As if that phrase could reverse gravity. Then a voicemail from my mother, sobbing. Not out of remorse. Out of inconvenience. You've left us in a terrible position. Your father can't even access his files. We have appointments next week. What are we supposed to do? I didn't respond. The more silence I gave them, the louder they became. That Friday, I woke up to a post from my aunt. Vague. Passive-aggressive. It's always sad when someone lets ego ruin connection. Families are built on forgiveness, not revenge. I didn't take the bait. But my cousin sent a screenshot from a private group chat where my mother had gone further. He's having another one of his episodes. They said I was irrational, that I'd lost touch. That's what they claimed when I stopped saying yes. There it was. The pivot. When they can't guilt you back, they paint you broken. Suddenly, I wasn't the generous son or the helpful brother. I was the problem, the liability. The narrative they crafted overnight was one where I had lashed out irrationally, where none of this was deserved, where I wasn't a man drawing a line. I was a ticking clock. They were saintly for tolerating this long. They told the story to anyone who would listen, that I overreacted, that I was bitter, that I threw a tantrum over a Thanksgiving joke. One cousin even messaged me privately, asking if I was okay. They're just worried. Maybe talk it out. Family's hard, but they love you. I ignored it, because love without accountability is manipulation. Then came the escalation. My dad emailed my workplace. The subject line, concern about my son's mental state. He wrote a long, strangely formal message claiming I had isolated myself from family and was making erratic financial decisions that could jeopardize relationships with clients. He CC'd my uncle, a subtle threat disguised as paternal concern. I forwarded the email to HR, added a note. Family dispute. Non-issue. No action needed. Then I blocked his address. But they weren't finished. That weekend, a burner Twitter account popped up under my name. It followed all my friends, colleagues, even clients. Posted a thread of faked screenshots, supposed rants I'd written about my family, my coworkers, my company. It was amateur work. Wrong tone, clumsy grammar, fake dates. But it didn't matter. It spread. For 48 hours, I fielded calls, messages, even one journalist inquiry. I stayed calm. Sent a single group email to everyone affected. The account is fraudulent. Legal steps underway. Thanks for your patience. Then I logged off and called my lawyer. We traced the account to a VPN exit node in the same city as my parents. Not definitive, but suspicious. Then my cousin, the one who used to send me funny memes at 2 a.m., messaged me something that sealed it. Your mom's saying you threatened to sue her, that you're trying to steal her retirement. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so predictably grotesque. They had twisted the truth into something digestible, something that made them the victims of the very person who carried their lives on his back for a decade. But I didn't argue. I didn't post a rebuttal. I didn't respond. Because when you stop enabling dysfunction, it doesn't fade quietly. It resists loudly. And I wasn't stepping back into that fire to explain the burn marks. So I made my move quiet and permanent. I updated my legal documents to explicitly remove my parents from all future decision-making rights. No emergency access, no medical proxy, no financial fallback. I left a message for my financial advisor. If they contact you, direct them to my attorney. I posted one final thing online, not to them, but for me. It took me years to realize that not everything labeled family is automatically healthy. Sometimes family isn't blood. Sometimes blood ties aren't enough to guarantee respect. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away before you catch fire too. I turned off comments and turned on peace. They wanted silence. I offered clarity, not with screaming, not with threats, just with receipts. It started on a Wednesday. My inbox pinged. A message from a former colleague. Subject line, you might want to see this. Inside was a link, a Facebook thread where my name was being dragged through the dirt. My mother had posted a carefully worded update, dripping with passive sympathy. It's so hard watching someone you love struggle. Please pray for my son. He's isolated, angry, and lost in bitterness. We've tried everything. Underneath were dozens of comments. You're such a strong mom. He'll come around. Mental health is tough. Stay patient. They were building a narrative. One where I was unstable. One where my silence became guilt. One where my withdrawal wasn't freedom, but fallout. I took a screenshot. Then another. Then I opened the folder I'd been building for months. Screenshots. Emails. Invoices. Access logs. Contracts. Bank statements. Messages. Call logs. All time-stamped. All real. At 3:04 p.m., I went live. A single post. Neutral tone. No insults. Just, there's been a lot said about me recently. I've stayed quiet. Not out of shame, but out of exhaustion. But now that stories are being told, here are the facts. Then came the thread. A receipt showing the $12,000 I paid for their mortgage when they missed 3 months in 2021. The Venmo log of my sister sending me a laughing emoji after I transferred her rent. Screenshots of emails from my father asking for one more favor, 12 times over 3 years. A breakdown of the tech infrastructure I built for their businesses, valued at over $30,000 in comp services. Text messages where my mother said, "It's just easier when you handle it. You're good at being invisible." I posted it all. For a long time, I thought if I just stayed helpful enough, they'd finally see me. Then I ended with this. I didn't disappear. I disengaged. They didn't lose me. They lost the version of me who never said no. Someone who held everything together while staying silent. I logged off. By nightfall, the ripple had become a wave. Friends messaged me. Old classmates. Aunts I hadn't heard from in years. Even my boss sent a short email. "We've got your back." But the real quake came the next morning. My mother's bridge club friend, the one who once said, "They didn't deserve that," commented publicly. I was at that dinner. I saw how they treated him. They made a joke about getting a tax write-off for having a broken son. I was horrified. Then came a former assistant from my uncle's clinic. He ran that place. For free. I saw the emails. I saw the pressure. Don't let them flip this. Then a screenshot surfaced. A private group text where my sister said, "He was only ever useful when we needed something." She forgot who she shared that chat with. And it exploded. The narrative unraveled on its own. My dad posted a vague quote about how betrayal starts at home. Nobody cared. Comments were off within an hour. My mom went silent. My sister deactivated her account. But that wasn't the end. At 2:43 p.m., I got a call from a blocked number. I answered. It was my uncle, the dental one. Voice trembling like he'd aged 10 years in 2 days. "What did you do?" he asked. "I told the truth," I said. "You've embarrassed us publicly," he snapped. "No," I corrected. "I stopped protecting a truth I was no longer willing to carry alone." He hung up. By 6 o'clock, I had over 200 new messages, 20 missed calls, emails from journalists asking if I wanted to go public. I didn't reply to any of them, not out of fear, but because I had nothing left to add. Facts had to speak where my words were always ignored. And that night, for the first time in years, I slept 8 hours straight. They came to the door like nothing had happened. My mother, my father, my sister, standing in a row. Practiced faces, matching coats, matching desperation. I opened the door, but didn't invite them in. "We just want to talk," my mom said softly. I wasn't angry anymore, just done pretending. Boundaries aren't walls, they're clarity. I wasn't closing the door on love. I was closing it on a version of me that existed only in service to others. I said nothing. "You made your point," my dad added. "But family isn't war." "No," I asked. "Then what do you call 20 years of silence while I built your life for you?" My sister looked away. "We didn't realize how much you did," my mom offered. Not sorry, just surprised. Then she said it. "We need you." There it was. The truth. Not miss. Not love. Just need. I stepped outside, shut the door behind me. You didn't just lose a holiday. You lost someone who gave everything, quietly, for years. "So that's it?" my sister asked. "Over a joke?" "No. Over 20 years of quietly giving, hoping it meant belonging. Until I learned boundaries are love too." They didn't reply. They didn't apologize. So I turned, walked back inside, shut the door. That was the last time I saw them. Not out of hate, but because I finally stopped giving my peace to people who only saw me as useful.